Welcome to World Speech Day. I'm going to tell you a story today from my life because, you see, I think I may have met an angel, but I've never been sure. So when I come to the end of my story, I'm going to let you decide. You may not believe this, but in my younger years, I was a bit of a wild child. I liked to go out partying. I worked in the hospitality industry, and at a certain time when it was in the early 90s, my social circle interconnected with another social circle. And I got to meet this extraordinary human being. Now, who here thinks they know what an angel looks like? What does an angel look like? Wings, white, halo, robes, you know, this sort of thing. Well, is it possible that an angel could be 6'4", built like a tree, and the only thing I ever saw him wear was a singlet, black shorts, gumboots. That was it. He had a thatch of blonde hair and sparkling blue eyes, and his name was Shane. Now, in the early days, so this was when I first met Shane. Now, some people, they come into your life for a long time, and other people come in for a short time, and then they move on again. Shane was one of those people. I think I knew him for maximum 6 months. That was long enough. Shane was unique. He never held down a 9-to-5 job. He was 4th generation New Zealander. His family owned a large property holding on the slopes of Mount Eden. By the time I met Shane, he had inherited what was left. It was a 4-hectare block on Mount Eden with a substantial, massive, big old villa. And he'd renovated 12, turned it into 12 apartments. He himself lived in a very humble, tiny little back flat on the ground floor. And he spent his days maintaining the property, looking after his tenants, pottering around, and tinkering in the workshop. First time I ever met Shane, he showed us around the property and he took us up to his workshop. And it was this big old barn out the back. And you had to wend your way up this path to get to it. And there were all these things like huge big old vehicles and half rusted metal shapes and tires and wires and pipes and every type of thing you could possibly imagine. And then the workshop itself was a wonderland for any male, full of all the machines he'd half built, half restored and was working on. And anybody who's read my stories, The Chronicles of Adam Weaver, the character of Stingray and his amazing workshop is based on Stingray, based on Shane. Because how could you meet someone like Shane and not write about him? He was just this extraordinary individual. So one day, Shane invited us all to go on a weekend trip. We were going to go away on the bus. It was an old school bus, maybe from the 1950s, that sort of era, that he had restored and put back together. So he picked us all up, big crew of us, on the Friday afternoon, and we headed off down to the Coromandel. And we went to all these parties. that night. And we worked our way down the coast of the Coromandel, and we ended up at the last party. We parked up, having a great time, wonderful night. But 4 o'clock in the morning, I thought, I've had enough now, time to turn in. So I went into the bus, rolled myself up in a blanket on the floor in the aisle, and tried to go to sleep. And after a little while, there was a tap on my shoulder. And I looked up into the moon face of Shane. And he said, "Hey, Yvette, do you want to see something really cool?" I was like, "Okay, sure, yeah." So we get out of the bus and start heading off, and we're going across the road, and then we're heading into the wilderness, and we're leaving the lights behind, we're leaving the people behind, we're leaving everybody behind, and we're heading into the blackness. And we're going down towards the sand dunes, and I'm thinking to myself, am I crazy? I can't even know this guy. I've just met this man. This is dangerous, right? I am going to regret this. And I was going into all this fear, and I was thinking all these terrible things, getting myself really worked up. But Shane is still walking, and I'm trying to keep up with him. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what am I doing? And we get over the sand dunes, and we go down onto the beach. And he goes up to the shore, the waterline, and he says, "Yes." And he bent down and he started running backwards with his hands going like this through the sand. And the sand just absolutely burst into light. There was lights and colours and stars, and it was like fireworks going off on the ground. I'd never seen or heard of this phenomena before. It's called phosphorescence. And it's when non-metallic elements combine and they combust without heat. That's phosphorescence. You need certain elements to be right and be in the right place at the right time, and of course in the darkness to see it. But to me, this was a spectacle unlike anything I'd ever seen before. And I joined him and I ran along beside him, and we both ran up and down the beach with our hands in the sand, laughing for at least an hour. And it was this really special experience in the middle of this partying weekend. So we carried on with our wonderful weekend. And on the Sunday, we all climbed onto the bus again. It's time to go back to the city. So we're making the drive back to Auckland, about halfway across the Hauraki Plains. Storm clouds roll in, and the sky becomes ominous. And then torrential rain starts pouring down. Now, what do people normally say under these circumstances? Any suggestions? Oh, the rain. Oh, the rain is so depressing. Oh, God, stand the rain. People go on and on and on when it rains. Not Shane. Shane, I was sitting behind him in the driver's seat because I knew he was going to have interesting things to say. And he was driving along with this beatific smile on his face. And he said to me, "Don't you love the way when the big raindrops hit the glass, they hold there and they hang there a minute?" Now, picture me. I'm a young person. I don't know anything. I'm not creative. I worked in the hospitality industry, and I worked and partied, and that was my life. I was your regular Joe Blow. I didn't look at the world in a creative way. I was just an ordinary human being. And when he said diamonds on the glass, I'm like, diamonds on the glass. What the heck is this guy on? I'm thinking, diamonds on the glass. I'm looking at him and I'm looking at his beatific smile. I'm looking at the glass and then I began to see through his eyes. I saw the diamonds. I said to him, I see them. I see the diamonds. And I cannot tell you, this was a subtle shift. It's just a step in perspective to the right. And yet it changed me. So there was one more impactful experience I had with Shane at the end of knowing him. Now, back in my day, in those days, there were no cell phones. We used to go to things called rages, and it was an all-night dance party. And I went to this rage, and it was being held in the Auckland railway station downtown. So there's this big curving driveway out the front. I danced all night, and I came out of the doors at 5 o'clock in the morning. It's pitch black outside. And I start to walk down the path, down the middle of the road. And there walking towards me is Shane. And I said, Shane, what are you doing here? He said, do you want to see something really amazing? I said, would I? Yes, I would. Let's go. And so we went down, we got into his jalopy, some major old car that he'd restored, and we cruised around Mission Bay. We got to the very end, as far as you can go, up to the headland. And you go down through the scrub, and then there's a big long pier. It goes right out into the water. So you go to the end of the pier, and from there you can see in the distance, in the blackness, the Coromandel Ranges against the horizon. And Shane said to me, have you ever seen sunrise? I said, oh. So we stood there looking into the darkness, and I'm thinking, sunrise, what is up with the sunrise? Why would anybody care to see the sunrise? Sunrise? And I'm thinking, oh God, I trust him. I'll hang in there. So we just stood there for ages. It took so long when you're waiting for something. We stood there and we stood there and we stood there. And then, at the top of the mountains, there was this fuzzy, easy listening. And it turned into this glow. The glow got stronger. And then there was this little rim of gold that just went, it got better and better and better. And then the sun rose. And this feeling of absolute ecstasy just rushed up from my feet through my entire body, and I was shaking and I just couldn't control it. I just started laughing, and he started laughing, and we held each other's hands and danced around in a circle like a couple of preschoolers, laughing our heads off. And never saw Shane again after that night. But I didn't need to. I'd only known him 6 months, but he had made an indelible impression upon me. And that is wonder, the wonder of the natural world. the exquisite home we live in. My viewpoint has never been the same again. And I see everything as special, as creative, as magnificent, as worth admiring and protecting and loving. So I ask you, did you meet an angel?